In this video, let's go ahead and create a super low poly game character, maybe for a mobile game or AR asset, game asset. But we'll create this fun looking cartoon bird. All right, so to get started, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the feather first. So I'm going to grab this cylinder, hold on the shift key, and just kind of drag my selection. And by default, if I go into attribute editor and look at my poly cylinder, I could see that the subdivision axes are set to 20. And I'm actually happy with this number, so I'm just going to leave it just like that. As far as the height goes, let's go ahead and maybe bring this down, so just kind of create the thickness of the feather. And I'm going to go to something even smaller, something like a 0.2. So it's still kind of chunky, but relatively thin, right? The next thing I would like to do is, let's go ahead and kind of stretch this out. And I'm going to go into my face mode and delete one of the sides. So essentially this will be the half of my feather. Next thing that I would like to do is turn on my wireframe so I could see the topology. And I'm going to jump into the top view. Let's go ahead and click on it and go into vertex mode. And maybe let's create some kind of a break in the feather. So it's still kind of low detail, but it gives us a cute little illusion, like there's, like a chunk missing or something, and we can figure out. I kind of like this round, so maybe figure out if you want one or two. Maybe I can do one more here, like a little break in the feather, and we can decide the distance of what that might look like. Maybe this could be something like this. All right, and then another thing I would like to do is, let's go ahead and go into our perspective view, and on the bottom of the feather I would like to grab this polygon here and just simply click on this button here to duplicate it. Once I have it duplicated, I can kind of pull it out. And now what I could do is, let's go into a face mode, make sure it's selected, and just simply extrude it. So something like that. And now let's shape it a little better. So I'm going to go back into my top view. And in this view, what I would like to do is grab these points here and just make the base much skinnier. And holding down the X key, let's go ahead and snap it to this center here. And let's go ahead and do the same thing with these points too. I'm going to grab all of these 3 points on this main shape, hold down the X key, and also snap it to the center. So now I know that all the points are aligned to my center for when we flip this over. Okay? Next, what I would like to do is, let's go back to this guy, and maybe again, let's adjust the shape just a little. Maybe I can put this and make a little more distance here, and maybe also create more width. And now what I'd like to do is go into the perspective view, grab this face here, and go ahead and extrude that. Just pull it out. Okay. Let's go ahead and scale this in, and maybe do something like that. So that's just adds a little more detail to the bottom of the feather, so it's a little more interesting than just simply one shape. You can figure out where you would like to position that, and you can also, if you wanted to, bevel this if you want to create just a little more detail. So something like that could work as well, depending on how low you need it to be. I'm also going to delete this backside, and let's go ahead and flip this over. So now we can just kind of finish modeling our feather. So I'm going to select this shape, hold down the shift key and click the main shape and do a combine right here with the circle. Okay, next I'm going to go to edit mesh and let's do a mirror, which is where it's under mesh, and let's look at the options. So my options are, I'm going to reset these settings and see what's going on here. So I'm just going to simply leave everything as is and just simply mirror it. And I need to mirror it in the positive direction, right? So then we have something like this. Now I do have merged border on, so these should technically be automatically merged. And now let's, again, let's maybe shape this a little better. Maybe this top part could have a little more height. And one of the things that does not look natural is the fact that both of these exist exactly in the same space, the kind of the break of the feather. So maybe let's get rid of one of them. And I'm actually going to put this back, and maybe let's make one here instead. So because the topology is so low, it's kind of very easy to control, and we can just simply shape it to what makes sense, right? If you wanted to add an additional cut, you could do that as well. We can come here, for example, grab our cut tool and maybe make a cut from here to here. And let's go ahead and go all the way around back to this point here and press enter. So now we have an extra line if we wanted to maybe do something like that. All right, let's take a look. I think that's pretty cool. The only thing that maybe we could do is add the center. So right now there's no kind of the center of the feather is missing. So maybe we can grab this edge and this edge, and let's go ahead and also grab this and then the bottom ones as well. And I'm going to leave this one alone for now and just do a bevel. So then I can control kind of the center of my feather. So I'm going to do something like this. I think 0.1 will work. And now what I could do is I can just simply, let's double click on this to select the entire loop. And let's go ahead and do an extrude and kind of just pull this out. All right. Now this part here, what I would like to do is maybe pull it out and scale it in a little bit. And if we wanted to, we can of course also simply grab these 2 points and just simply click on this to merge them. And let's do the same thing on the bottom here. We'll just simply merge them together. And maybe that is actually a little bit better for our feather. Okay, and then let's go ahead and do, let's take a look here. So maybe we can grab this do an extrude and just simply pull it down, right? Just like that. So that will be kind of the bottom, and maybe do something like this. So I'm pretty happy with this as a fun little cartoon feather, right? Now let's go ahead and create the body for the bird. For that, I'm gonna actually, let me think. Let's hop into a perspective view. And for now, I'm gonna simply move this out of the way. And now what I need to do is let's grab a box. And now let's go to mesh and do a smooth on it. And I think that 2 divisions is pretty much perfect for kind of a low poly character. Okay. Another thing I could do is maybe grab these points here, or these polygons, and let's go ahead and holding down the shift key, we can click on the period to grow our selection, grab our scale tool, go to soft selection, turn on soft selection, and let's go ahead and change this to maybe a 3 or maybe a 2, and just scale this in to kind of create the top part of the bird's head. And if you wanted to, you can even take the bottom part and just scale this out a little more, and maybe even flatten it as well. So something like that is very nice. Okay, I'm gonna go into my top view, grab my move tool, hold down the X button, and just make sure that I snap it to the center of my grid from the top view. Now let's go ahead and grab our feather and kind of position it into place. So one of the things I need to do is click on this button to center in my pivot, and now just simply scale this in. And we can even adjust the thickness as well if we wanted to, maybe make it a little thinner. I'm gonna hold down the J key and rotate this 75 degrees. So I'm watching the bottom left of my screen. This is 90, this is 75. And when you hold the J key down in your rotation tool settings, the step snap gets activated, and mine is currently set to 15 degrees. If I let it go, you can see that it goes on and off. You can change this manually if you like, but by default, I believe it's set to 15 degrees. Let's go ahead and jump back into the top view, and holding down the X key, I can snap this to the center and maybe move it to the back of the bird. And kind of put this in position of where kind of the bird's back is, right? So something like that. We can now we can press, now let's press the D key, then V, and then snap this to the bottom of the feather, which will allow us to rotate and create kind of a custom angle of what we think makes sense. So I'm just going to move this in, maybe move it up, and just make kind of a nice connection. So let's go ahead and rotate this a little more, and I think that looks pretty cool. Alright, so the next step is let's give our bird a beak. So for the beak, I'm just going to do something really simple. I'm just going to grab this, we can grab the same shape, or maybe we can extrude something from here. So let's go ahead and actually grab, I'm going to turn off my soft selection by pressing B. I'm going to grab all of these lines here, and let's go ahead and do a bevel. Alright, and now let's go ahead and, now when we do a bevel, we do create a polygon with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 faces. And maybe before we get too far into our modeling, let's go ahead and fix that. Let's go ahead and simply make a cut from here to here to avoid a polygon with more than 4 sides. And I'm going to do the same thing here as well. Just keep our topology nice and clean, especially because this is a game model. I'm going to grab all of these and just simply extrude and just pull them up. Grab my scale and pull them in, and then pull them in this way. And now what I would like to do is, let's go ahead and press on this scale here, and pull these in just like this. Now what I would like to do is go into my side view. Let's go into verts mode, and let's maybe bring these down so it doesn't look like it's pointing up. We can grab these points and lower them so the side of the beak is a little lower and maybe the front is a little higher. Okay, let's check it out. I think that looks really cool. We can of course grab some of these points here. I would like to have the beak actually have a little do something like this, where this part kind of comes up and then this part kind of goes down. I think that's what I was looking for. And now what I would like to do is let's grab this and grab our cut tool and just make a cut from here all the way across to the other side. So that's going to be kind of the front mouth part, and then press enter. Alright, now what I can do is grab all of these points that we just created. And keep in mind, I'm not really making it symmetrical. I'm kind of playing with the shapes, and at any time we can always flip this geometry or mirror it to make it symmetrical if we needed to, but for now it's just so simple it just works. Let's pull this out to create kind of a more of a beak look. Okay. And another thing that we could do, of course, is come to the top, grab our scale tool and maybe scale this in a little. Maybe grab these points, scale them in. Again, something nice and simple. I'm going to scale these out because I want to make sure I have a nice kind of almost like a pyramid shape going. I'm going to pull these in here, pull this in here. So I think it's more and more starting to look like a beak. Okay. Very cool. The next thing, let's go ahead and add some eyes. So for the eyes, let's do something really simple. I'm just going to click on my shape, make it live, grab my box, and just draw a box holding the shift key down right on the surface there. Now I can go to mesh, do a smooth, and let's see what division 1 might look like. Maybe because this is a really low poly character, we can figure out if we want 1 or 2. I'm just going to go with 1. Turn off my live and make this a little larger. And let's go ahead and go into face mode and just double click on these and delete them. And then double click on the bottom and delete that. Now if I grab my move tool, I can switch this to object mode in the tool settings. You can get tool settings by just double clicking on these transform tools. And maybe let's scale this in a little and then grab our move tool, move it in, and just kind of put it in position of where the eye would be. Then we can of course decide the size of our eyeball. And another thing we could do is, if you don't want it round, we can always change the shape of it. Maybe move it a little closer. Just keep it nice and simple. To flip it over, we can just do mesh. Let's do a mesh and mirror. And make sure direction, in my case, I need to set it to positive. And I can turn off merge borders if I wanted to keep them separate. I think that's it's pretty cool. If you wanted to maybe make some feet, we could do that. Let's go ahead and grab another box, and we'll do another smooth. And for that, I'm going to go to 1 as well. Next, I can grab all of these bottom points here and just scale them in. And then let's grab all the points and just kind of make more of a foot kind of look. Go to object mode. Let's pull this out and take a look and see how that's looking. I think that's really cute. What I would like to do next is let's go into our side view, and I'm gonna make this a little longer. Hold down the X key, and I'm actually gonna hold down the D key, then the V key, and just kind of snap this to the bottom. Now what I can do is hold down the X key and snap it to the bottom of the grid here, the floor. Alright, let's go back. Let's go in this view, make sure to see how that it's looking. I think it looks good. Let's go into perspective view. And now what we could do is maybe make this a little skinnier. And instead of just having one kind of toe, maybe we can rotate this. And I would like to go into my world view and just kind of shift it over a little bit, then press Control D, and let's go ahead and rotate this guy this way a little more, and maybe give him a couple toes. Alright, now let's go ahead and clean this up so it actually makes sense. So to do this, I'm trying to figure out if I want 3 toes. Let me see what 3 looks like. I'm going to press Control D and maybe make 3 toes. I actually like this even more. Alright, so next let's go ahead and grab all of these, and we can decide how we want to deal with these points in there. But for now, I'm going to combine it, go in my top view, and go ahead and do isolation by pressing this. And let's take a look and see if we can just not make it too complicated, but just simply move them around. I'm going to go into X-ray mode and right click, go to vertex mode, and let's just simply take some of these and kind of move them into position a little better so they don't overlap as much. So something like that is good on this side. I'm going to grab points here and just kind of separate the shapes. So this toe is over here. And if it gets too confusing, you can always double click on it and move it out of the way so you know what's going on. You could see it, better. Maybe what I'm trying to do is just kind of create something like this. Now I'm going to double click and maybe put it back into position. Even from this angle, we can of course rotate it, so keep that in mind. But So this is going to be the back of the foot. So if we wanted to, we can maybe do something like this. All right, let's take a look and see what that looks like. I think that works. And this is actually not going to be seen because he's not going to be, he doesn't really, because he's so cartoony, he doesn't really need like the leg part. It's just really the toes. So now the next thing before I flip it over, I'm looking at the center line, and I really need to make sure that this entire shape is not overlapping the center line. So I do want to move it out of the way a little bit. Something like that I think will work, and maybe move it just a little bit forward. All right. All right, so now let's simply flip this over. I'm going to click on this, go to Mesh, and do a mirror. Again, direction needs to be positive, and merge borders doesn't really matter. I'm going to leave mine on, and let's take a look. Very cool. The other thing that maybe our cartoon bird could use is some wings. So for the wings, again, let's grab another box, do a mesh smooth. I'm going to do one division, and I'm just going to simply squish this into more of a wing shape, and maybe grab, let's go ahead and move this out of the way just a little bit so we can see this a little better. I'm going to go grab all these points and just simply scale them in. Something like that is very cute. Let's grab this and pull this out a little. And now let's just simply put this in position and maybe rotate it a little bit. Make it a little smaller. So that's going to be his little side wing here. I'm going to take this and do a mesh mirror. All right. So right now our model is only 456 polygons. So this is really, really super low. All right, so the next thing, before we finish this, let's go ahead and maybe give him a couple hairs on top. I think that would be really cute. I'm just gonna grab this cone, drag a cone right on the center. Let's go into Attribute Editor and let's change our subdivision to kind of match the look of what we're building, sort of a very low poly. We can add some height division so we can maybe create a bend in our hair. We can change the height. All right. And let's go ahead and just simply make this a lot smaller. Just kind of drag it into position on the top of the head. I'm going to turn, let's go ahead and go to isolate, and I really don't need the these faces here. I'm going to press delete. All right. And let's see what else can we do. Let's rotate this. Definitely make it much smaller. Put it in position, and maybe let's take a look at kind of the front view here. If we go into vertex mode, we can create a bend for his hair, maybe something like that. We can hold on the D key and change the position of the pivot. So I want my pivot to be somewhere around here right now. Go to rotate, maybe change the pivot. All right, and then let's do on one more, do Control D. Flip it over. Let's go ahead and maybe change the direction and maybe change the height. And I don't want this to look like horns, so I'm actually gonna maybe, let's see if we can play around with this a little more. So maybe something like that. And maybe actually let's do 3 of them. I'm going to Control D and do another one, maybe a little smaller. All right, let's take a look. And I would like to actually combine all of mine into one shape. Grab the scale tool and just make it much, much smaller. All right, so you have a cute little cartoon character that again is only 528 faces, and it's under 1,000 tries. So this would be a great little mobile character for a game. We can always turn on our ambient occlusion here, so we can have some shadows. We can turn on anti-alias, and you can see your work. If you wanted to, another thing we could do is grab this, press Control D, and maybe make another one, and maybe scale this in. Maybe put this up a little bit. Let's do the same thing again on this side. Control D, bring it over here, maybe put it in front and scale it down. The only thing I will need to do now is make sure that it doesn't go through his body, right? So that's important. Maybe we can fix the rotation. All right, so I think that's really cool. If we wanted to, we can also add a, we can keep adding more and more detail. For example, we can grab this beak here, and of course we can bevel it. And now what we can do is grab all of these points, all of these this entire loop, and just do an extrude, and just maybe pull this in. And that would create kind of a break in his beak, just to add even more detail. All right, so I hope you had fun making this cute little character. The next step would be, of course, coloring it. If we wanted to, we could just see what he looks like with color without doing UVs. For example, we could, I'm going to combine him into one and go to Edit, Delete by Type History. Make sure my outliner is nice and organized. Call this little bird. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click, and I just want to see what would he look like with the little color, right? So let's right click and go to Assign Favorite Material, and I'm just going to do something simple like the basic Fong. And let's decide what color we want our bird to be. Maybe my bird is going to be blue. I can now double click on these, right click and let's do another foam material, and maybe let's make the eyes black. I can grab the beak, grab all this and all these guys. I think I got all of it. I want to make sure that I don't get anything else. Right click, go to foam, and maybe this time let's go ahead and make it kind of a orange red. I think that's cute. We can do the same thing with this. Let's double click. Let's select, holding down the shift key, I'm just double clicking on all the faces. Right click, do existing, and do foam 3 was my orange. All right. So very quickly we created kind of a, and we didn't even do UVs, we just simply applied the material, but it already looks super cute and fun. So have fun. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next video.